Hello, everyone from St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. My name is Andrea Warman, and I'm an Alumni Engagement Officer at Memorial University. So I'm here today with Denise Faulkner, the Recruitment and Retention Coordinator for the School of Graduate Studies, Julie Baring, Senior Career Development Coordinator with the School of Graduate Studies, and our special guest, double alumna, Laura Winter, BA 99, MA 15. So I know those of you who are attending can't see who else is in the room today, but we've got about 10 people online here now and more joining every second. So we're delighted about that. We will begin today's event with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge the lands on which Memorial University's campuses are situated are in the traditional territories of diverse Indigenous groups. We acknowledge with respect the histories and cultures of the Beothuk, the Mi'kmaq, Innu, and Inuit of this province. We encourage everyone to reflect on the lands from where you are located and the Indigenous peoples for whom these lands are traditional territories. At the Office of Alumni Engagement, we're focused on offering many ways for you to connect with Memorial from anywhere in the world. We are working diligently to create opportunities to celebrate, socialize, mentor, learn, and advance both your career and improve your life. Embarking on new and exciting ways to build relationships with our Memorial family of over 100,000 members is vital to our evolution as an institution. Alumni are the drivers of economic, social, cultural development across the province and beyond. So please consider getting involved with our programming. You can be a mentor with 10,000 coffees, discover opportunities to meet up with Newfoundland expats through Global NL, join our online book club called Coastlines, which features a stellar selection of Newfoundland and Labrador authors. And you can find out more details about all of these programs on our website, www.ca/alumni. So thank you for joining us today for our discussion about the School of Graduate Studies. And just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. You are not able to unmute your microphone or turn on your camera, but you can ask questions and we encourage you to do so. The Q&A function is at the bottom right-hand side of your screen. So you can type out the questions there and then somebody from our panel will answer those and respond for you. So we encourage you, again, ask your questions right away. Don't leave them till the last minute. We are streaming live, but the event is being recorded and that'll be posted on our website following the event. So I'd like to now turn things over to Julie Baring from School of Graduate Studies to get started. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Clear. Yes, loud and
Okay.
clear. Go ahead.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, Andrea, for that. Thanks to everyone for your interest in grad studies at Memorial University. Memorial offers over 100 graduate diploma, master's, and doctoral programs at the most affordable tuition rates in Canada. Many of our professional programs can also be completed part-time or through online options. And also many of our students join graduate programs for personal discovery, which means to satisfy their academic curiosities and interests. Hopefully, after today's discussion, you will find a program that inspires and best suits you. And it is my great pleasure to introduce our special guest today. Laura Winter is a BA 99 and MA 15, as Andrea mentioned, is a multi-award winning educator, folklorist, musician, and arts facilitator. As one part of the Juno award-winning children's band, the Swinging Bells, she has traveled Canada and Europe, playing music festivals and facilitating workshops for the young and the young at heart. Laura is also a grade 1 French immersion teacher at Bishop Field Elementary School and completed her Bachelor of Education at Acadia. She is the recipient of the ArtsNL Award for Arts in Education, and most recently, Laura has earned levels 1 and 2 practitioner diplomas in sound healing from the Sound Healing Academy in Cornwall, England. Laura is the first certified sound healer and vibrational therapist in Newfoundland and Labrador. Okay, so we will get started. Sorry, I'm having a bit of trouble with my screen here. All right. Hello, Laura. I think you're muted.
Hi.
Hi.
Awesome. We
Can
can
you
hear
guys,
you.
I don't have the screen that we had when we had our practice session. It went away.
Don't worry.
Oh,
We can see and hear you.
Okay,
yes.
I can't see you guys, but I can hear you. Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Okay, it just disappeared and I didn't know what to do.
Yeah,
All right, we're all
I
all
can.
back to them.
Okay, great. Nice to meet you again online.
Hello.
Um, so I just have a few questions. I wanted to get started, and we really want to know, why did you decide to go back to grad school?
Oh, that's a good question, actually. I was living in Halifax at the time, and I had just finished my teaching degree. So I moved back to Halifax and was teaching at a private school there. And then I just kind of got that yearning to be a student again. I only taught for a year. I missed learning. And so I really started thinking about what interested me. I had already done my undergrad, and then I had a more practical professional degree in teaching. And I just thought about where my interests lay. And I was drawn back to folklore, which is my undergrad with a double major in folklore and English. And I just started thinking about things that, were of interest to me. And then I flew home for a visit to the folklore department and met with the then head was Martin Lovelace. And we had a great meeting and just spoke about, my interests and some potential thesis topics. And I applied and I got in. And so I took my whole life after a decade in Nova Scotia and moved back to Newfoundland and went start my MA.
Great. It's never too late, is it?
No,
Uh,
I was 30 that year, so
well,
we're too.
I did my BA, finished in 90, and then just finished this year at an MED. So it really isn't.
Never.
You can go
I
back
think
at
about coming back again.
any time. Yeah, well, exactly. So what was your degree program in the area of specialization?
It was an MA in folklore,
Folklore. Yeah.
and my thesis studies focused on children's folklore. So I, was interested initially in space and play, how children use space to play, having been a teacher and observed quite a lot of that. And I actually ended up writing my thesis based on a term paper I had written for one of the courses on Bloody Mary. So the game Bloody Mary in the mirror, and I was looking at the cultural differences in the game that children who went to Catholic school in Newfoundland versus Protestant school back when we had the divided school system, which is how I grew up. And I just remember speaking to somebody about it one day and saying, well, we thought the Virgin Mary was going to appear in the mirror. And this friend did not go to Catholic school. And they were like, who, what? When we played Bloody Mary, we thought it was going to be, a witch. And someone else said, oh, I thought it was going to be like the queen from Snow White. And then all those variations really caught my attention. So I wrote a term paper, like a shorter, 20-page paper about it. And then Philip Hiscock, who was my prof, both for that course and my supervisor, said, you're really onto something here. Nobody's ever done any work with this before. And, you've got your groups there and ready to go. And you're back. I was back in the school system at that point. After finishing my coursework, I actually went back to teaching just for financial reasons. And so I had a group of kids here. I teach at Bishop Field, and I'm in the library here now. And it's an old school. And so Bloody Mary, mythos and usage is still rampant here. And so it just kind of went from there. So I did a retrospective analysis of how children played Bloody Mary in the 1980s in St. John's, bringing it right up into current day. And it was so exciting. Like nerding out here. It was so exciting. It really was though. I love learning. I love researching. I love talking to people. I love trying to fit the pieces together. So that's so I guess children's supernatural play is my specific expertise.
What an interesting research field. It's great. And I know what you mean. There are certainly with the denominational system, there are a lot of differences, right, in how
Yeah.
we perceive that game. Um, you've probably answered, I think, some of the questions that I have, but just wondering, and obviously you've already gotten a lot out of your degree. Do you have
Yeah.
any other career plans? I mean, I know you've done a lot and are doing a lot in the
Yeah,
future.
well, I do always have this idea in my head and have had for a number of years, and I'm just sort of finding the right moment and the right people to kind of bring it to fruition. But this idea of play and children's play is still very fascinating to me, and I don't think it has been explored nearly enough. There's been a lot of collections made of, counting out rhymes, skipping rhymes. There's been studies done on, the hierarchy of play, why children play certain things with certain groups of children, what they gain from it in terms of development, socialization, that kind of stuff. But I would really, really like to actually someday make a documentary on neighborhood play and maybe the rise and fall of neighborhood play and possibly the demise of neighborhood play. Because we're seeing children these days who are very structured, very overscheduled. Um, they just, their parents are more worried, they're checking in all the time. So I just think that kind of freedom that, kids used to have to like, my mom used to say that, why don't you go just bang around or something? Oh, why don't you just go bang around with the neighborhood kids and come in at supper time? And all people, I'm in my 40s, people my age seem to have that kind of memory and that kind of experience. And I feel like it doesn't exist as much now. And I'd really like to make a little documentary on that. Like, what was it like for kids in the 80s and 70s and where it started kind of falling off, and what about kids now? What kind of freedoms do they have to, to bang around the neighborhood with their friends and, build forts and climb trees? Like I think that has really diminished, but maybe not. I don't know. I'm really interested to explore that. And I think a documentary would be a really cool way to do it.
Sounds like it. And of course, with COVID now as well, too, you don't, that may have been playing a part as well.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
even though kids can still play outside, but so much has changed.
Well, the COVID piece alone is like, a feast for a folklorist, to look at how the changes that have come because of it and how socialization has changed and, what are kids, how their socialization online is affecting them. Like not even from, of course, there's this psychology viewpoint, but I'm not a psychologist. But from a folklorist viewpoint, how is it affecting the games they play? How is it affecting their belief systems? Is it affecting their belief in the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus? All these things because they've got access to online learning, and kids are learning now younger out of necessity, younger and younger, how to use a computer, how to use a phone. And, are they going to start finding this stuff out earlier? It's just, I don't know. It's so rich. It's so
Yeah,
rich.
I never even thought about those things.
No
It's
need to
true.
lie. You said it.
Um, so tell us why you chose Memorial specifically for graduate studies. I know you touched on, your research
My
supervisor.
other choice, because folklore is it's a very open discipline. There's a lot of room to explore and to forge your own path with it. A lot of room and a lot of flexibility. And Memorial has the only folklore department, English speaking folklore department. I believe Laval has one in French, and I do speak French, but not like at master's writing level, like absolutely at all. And so there was that. Now, my other option, I did consider St. Mary's they have an Atlantic Canadian Studies program. Again, more of an open kind of thing, but it's the well-established folklore department was really appealing to me. It's a small department, and they do I don't know if all departments do this, they do a rotating head of department. Every couple of years, someone changes it. So I find that really, it's really fresh. They've got a lot of, a lot of young staff there now, actually, even in the just a few years since I've graduated. Most of the original, professors there, a lot of them have retired, which is a shame for anyone going in there now. I'm sure there's amazing, amazing people in there, but I just worked with some of the most experienced and knowledgeable folklorists in North America. Memorial has a really well-established reputation, really well-established, especially in the folklore world. They're, second to none, I'm pretty sure. So that's why I did it. And also, they have really great funding for me at the time, which is, that sweetens the pot. I mean, I would have done it anyway, but to, have such good, to be well funded is really an extra little gift.
Yeah, well, if it's, I mean, I've heard so many great things about the department, and of course, if it's the only English speaking one, as you mentioned, Laval is French, then it would have to be, right?
Yeah.
And being here in Newfoundland and Labrador is such rich heritage, culture, folklore. What a great place to,
Yeah, I think, well, it was really built on, it was started built in the 60s and 70s, and it's just, people coming in to tap into the folklore of Newfoundland and Labrador, and then they established the department here. But now you go in and the archives there are, I mean, some of the thesis topics are just fascinating. People have gone in so many directions, and people come from so many other places, and they might base their master's work or their PhD, their dissertations on folklore and, traditions and customs in their own, country, province, town, like other places. But just because, we're so well established here, people really know what they're doing. They know their stuff, and the courses are fascinating. The coursework I did, like, it was hard. It was a really intense, very heavy workload. I so many papers. Every course had a term paper that was 30 pages. Every, all the annotated bibliographies. I think I submitted my thesis proposal 12 times before my supervisor decided it was acceptable to bring before the, the department for approval. So, like, it was rigorous, but that makes me value it even more.
Yeah, the topics are fascinating. I know you were talking about different folks from different countries and provinces doing, various topics. I know a few years ago, a student did one on hitchhiking, which was
Yeah,
fascinating.
fascinating.
It came up in the news.
In the school there.
Um, so how would you describe your experience as a graduate student at Memorial?
Oh, that's a good question. And I was like, I guess a slightly older graduate student, than most of the students in my
Yeah.
class. Like, most of them were fresh from their undergrad. And I was my undergrad plus my postgrad plus a couple years of teaching, you know. So I thought it was going to be hard for me. I was certainly not the oldest one, like, in the department. There was PhD candidates that were, older. And it's not that that matters, but you just culturally, socially, I thought, like, maybe I'd be a bit of an oddball. I am a bit of an oddball, but I thought maybe I wouldn't settle in easily. But the department is they're so great. They're so welcoming and warm to absolutely everyone. The seminars are small, really small. So you end up making really good friends. Some of the friends I made in that department, I ended up forming my first band, not my current band, but the first band I played in was a band with some of the students there. And that was my first time performing, like, in that kind of, environment, like at a bar on a stage. So that was a lot of fun, and, very close, very tied close together. We had, a lot of parties at people's houses, these small little, amazing gatherings where, the ideas are being shared, and, people are so different, and they're coming from such different backgrounds, but you're all in this amazing environment together. I just found it so supportive, just amazing. I ended up kind of messing up, like, going back to work before I finished my thesis was really a hard thing to do. And it ended up taking me years to finish my thesis. but the department was still so supportive of me, even though like I didn't realize I had to apply for a leave of absence. So I went to one point where I owed like, oh my gosh, so much tuition, because I thought that if I wasn't working on my thesis, I didn't have to pay. Like, anyway, the department like
I've been there.
right? Like I just didn't know. Anyway, they
Yeah.
walked me through absolutely everything, helped me with the paperwork, which is my nemesis. I can't fill out paperwork. I don't know why. There's the boxes. I don't know. Like I can do so many things, but I can't fill out paperwork. And they were like, okay, Laura, you come here and we'll do this. And, and they held my hand even as like an adult. It's not like I was an undergrad. I was like in my 30s, and they were like, okay, you come sit here and we'll help you fill this form out. Just amazing. So great.
Sounds like it's really tight. It was really tight knit. I'm sure it still is.
Yes,
And
I imagine
supportive.
it still is. I think that's sort
Yeah.
of their thing,
Yeah.
wonderful people there.
How do you feel your graduate education complemented your career?
Oh, yeah. Lots of ways. My career is kind of, still zigzagging along. I'm teaching right now, but I don't imagine I will continue teaching for a whole lot longer. That's a whole other kettle of fish. Like that's fun. That's a whole other story about the school system. But it's been really amazing. It's helped me look at things differently as a teacher, because I work with young kids, but I feel like I have like an insight that goes beyond, what they teach you in teacher school, like how to be a teacher. But, you can't really learn that, that's experience. But I feel like doing so much studies and so much work in children's play has really enhanced my understanding of the value of play, the why they play the way they do. It's helped me learn to help students navigate their relationships in ways. I'm teaching grade 1 right now, so we see a lot of their learning in grade 1 is social emotional stuff. Learning to get along, learning to take turns. Like just the other day, we were in the park and one of the little boys came over and he's mad because his friend cheated at grounders, and he said he was it, but then he's tagged someone else, and I was like, all right, come here. And I had them all put their fists in. I said, my mother and your mother were hanging up close. My mother, because they didn't know that one. And they were all like, oh. And anyway, when it ended up counting it out, the little boy who came to me complaining about being it, he was it again. I said, are you okay with being it? He goes, well, as long as it's fair, so, but that's all it takes for it's just a different viewpoint knowing that they play a certain way for a certain reason. And I don't know, I think that's something valuable that I've taken from my graduate work.
It sounds like the kids would really benefit from it, like something, extra that you would bring.
It's a funny example, but it brings a lot of insight into helping the kids. And for something that small, like that's a small thing, but that didn't need to be turned into a big thing. It just needed to be settled in kid fashion, not in teacher, you do this and you do that fashion.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's fine.
And you get the background and the insight to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess our final question, and probably one that a lot of folks wondering about, what advice do you have for future graduate students?
Oh, do it. If you can, do it if you can. It's not, graduate work at Memorial is less expensive than anywhere else, but that does not speak to the quality of the education in the graduate program, in the graduate studies world.
That's true.
I think about it constantly. It constantly comes up. My closest friends will joke and say, did you write a paper about that, Laura? Because I have, like anything that comes up, I'm like, actually, the paper about that once. Let me tell you about full moon beliefs then, or whatever. Anything that comes up, I'm like, oh, I did actually write a paper about aphrodisiacs in food. Or, these are everything. I just value learning so deeply. I just am a passionate learner. And I think my time in graduate studies really ignited that even more. That's who I am as a person, but my time in the graduate studies program, and then I also did the graduate, the teaching, I can't remember what it's called now, the acronym, where I did an additional course and ended up doing some lecturing in the English department under a mentor, and I can't remember what it's called. There's an acronym for it. It's been a while now.
It's probably the Teaching Skills Enhancement Program. Would that be it?
That might be it,
Something
but it
like
wasn't called that. Maybe it was called something else
Okay.
then.
Another acronym. There's lots of acronyms.
Always changing the acronyms. Anyway, but it was an additional course that I did with other graduate students from all disciplines
Right. Yeah.
over a semester, and then you hooked up with a mentor and did some lecturing in undergraduate classes with your mentor and with feedback and stuff. So I ended up actually mentoring under Shane O'Day, who is also since retired. He was in the English department, but he was, like a 3M, Distinguished Teaching Award recipient, like just.
Yeah. He taught me a course like 100 years ago.
He taught me all through undergrad, actually. He was my advisor then. And
Wow. Yeah.
I had that amazing opportunity to go back and then work with him as a graduate student, just as a branch off of what I was doing. So I was lecturing a little bit in the English department, and it was like, oh my gosh, it was magnificent. So if they still have that program, I'm sure they do. I don't know what it's called now, but definitely get into that program, because even if you're not going to go into teaching and lecturing, like, you learn so much by teaching. They say teaching someone to do something is the best way to learn about it. That's one of those things. Anyway, so I'm very passionate about that aspect of it. Oh, I just loved it. I can't say enough. I really am just thinking back on like how much, it was hard. It was hard. Don't get me wrong. Oh my God, the papers I wrote, but I love learning. I wake up in the middle of the night with questions. Like the other night I woke up and I was like, how do they make mustard? I need to learn how to make mustard. Maybe I was dreaming about it. Anyway, I'm sure someone in some department can tell you how to make mustard and where it comes from and why and the origins of mustard. This stuff is so exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah. Nothing is linear anymore. There's so much diversity, and certainly with, you can bring so much from a graduate program to career, to your life in general. It's just
Very
rich.
rich. It's very
Yeah.
rich, and it has really enhanced my life. All aspects
That's
of it,
wonderful.
all the time.
Great. All right. Well, I think we've come to the end of the questions that we had. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add at all, or anything?
No, I don't know if I could be any more enthusiastic or effusive, but just do it. It's the best.
It's
It's
wonderful.
amazing. It's
Yeah.
so life enriching.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
S-
I don't know if there's a chat questions. I can't see them. So
Yeah. I'm not sure. Do we have any questions?
Okay, well, there is one question. I already sent a link privately, but for general interest, I would say not specific to Laura, but for say someone who already completed undergrad and they are now contemplating a program of study in a different field. For example, you did English, but you're looking to go into math, whether or not you stand a chance. I'm going to drop a link in the chat to our program page, which if anyone has not looked at it yet, that's a great place to start because you can see the plethora of programs, whether you're interested in folklore or something else. There are a plethora of programs there to select from, and it's a great place to look and see what's available and what am I eligible to apply for based on my profile. So I'm going to just drop that in the chat. That's where you can look at all the programs we offer at the School of Graduate Studies. And if you scroll down to usually the end of the page, it shows you the minimum admission requirements, and you can have a look and see. So for example, I just brought up the math and statistics program page. And one may wonder, can I get in if, let's say, I have a BA in English. You might notice that there are two different master's programs, and one you may end up getting in, whereas so the Master of Science program has, you know, two options, and depending on what courses you completed at the undergrad level, you may get into one program versus another. Whereas say the Master of Applied Statistics has a different requirement. So this is how you could probably look at it. I don't know if even Laura, you could share, you know, your experience with diving into something that's a little different from where you started out and how you navigated that.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Sorry, I'm just answering a question in the chat here.
Yes.
And I'm on my phone, so I don't know if like you guys can see I'm doing this. Sorry. Yes, well, it was a little bit different because most for me, it was sort of just the amount of time that had passed since doing an education degree is not an academic degree. It's a professional degree, you know,
Right.
so it's not, there's not, you know, the papers are like 3 pages long, like it's, you know, forgive me, but it's not, you know, like it's
Intensive.
right. It's totally not. It's like, oh, here's a group project, make a poster about yourself, like whatever. But so it's not an academic world. Um, but I think so that was the biggest leap for me actually was getting back into a very academic program after such a gap in finishing my undergrad academics. So that was kind of my biggest thing. So I had to just, it was kind of relearning like citations and you know, and that kind of thing. And every department has, you know, has different, like, oh, we're using Chicago Turabian this year, or you know, we're
Yes,
LA
yes.
Turabian. You know, that was actually my hardest thing was the little
Mhm.
nitty gritties. Um,
Yes.
but that's I can't, I don't know what other departments do, but for me that was the hardest part. It was kind of getting right back into the super academic like citations, you know, annotated bibliographies, you know, whereas like in education, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to paint a picture about my identity. Oh, you're going to give me an A, excellent. But the master's in folklore is like grueling. But other than that, that's all my only, that was my biggest issue in making that leap.
I have a very similar experience moving from an undergrad in theology to Masters of Education. And I just thought you just chose all the right courses with all the right professors to end up getting the easy, the easy role. Um, and it is true that even the minor things like, are you using Turabian versus APA? If you spent 4 years in undergrad doing Turabian and then suddenly you're in the graduate program and you're now to learn APA, it can take, you know, a bit of practice and relearning to, you know, switch completely. So those are the little things that people don't think of, and I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Absolutely. Sorry, I just saw something in the chat about a second class degree. I said not,
So the
not
second class degree just refers to the honors or award that,
okay. I thought that was
yes.
something to me. I was like, I didn't mean to imply education was not a good degree. I have one. I just, it's not an academic degree. Sorry, I thought I offended
Yes.
something for a second there.
Yes. So what I will suggest, and I'm going to drop this in the chat, sgs@mon.ca. If you have any program specific questions or any questions that are related to your qualifications, your transcript, anything like that, and you want more specific responses to your situation, you can always drop us an email there, or even call the office and have a chat with us, and we will talk specifically about your situation and any concerns you have. Um, I see another question here about, so I'm going to just read it out. If an incident like an accident or serious health issue affected your grades so much during one's time in school, is your situation hopeless in pursuing a master's degree at MUN? And the poster said that they had an accident which hospitalized them during their studies, and it really had a big impact on it. So they want to know, you know, how would um, their their transcript or so be looked at. And to that, I will say, Um, when you are applying to the School of Graduate Studies, it's not just about, we list the minimum admission requirements, but if you look at what we ask you to submit, we are giving you an opportunity to show us who you are in totality, not just what grades you got. Because, yes, go ahead, Laura.
My undergraduate transcript is extremely colorful. Extremely, I mean, and lower end colorful, if you know what I mean. I mean, there's a
Yes.
space in there, but it's like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you're just young then. You don't know. You know, you're just,
Yes.
I was just there for the party. But I'm young, you know, and my, like, some marks are good and some are total garbage. But they just, you know, other things are secondly, I think, you
Yes.
know, certainly in my world, they were.
Right, right. And I'm glad you pointed that out, because to be a shining star like Laura and have uh, you call it a colorful transcript for undergrad, it's just proof to you that it's not just about percentages. We look at the whole person, because you are bringing your whole person. Things like what you do in a community, your travel experience, cross-cultural interactions, volunteer experience, your work experience. Um, Someone had mentioned, you know, exploring a new area of study as a passion project. All those things count when you're putting together your application. And there are spaces within the application form where you can tell your story. You can explain, why does my transcript look like a wreck? Or why is there this long gap between when I started my program and when I finished it? So I'm really glad you shared that, Laura. It's not just about, you know, the grades. Um, Present us your full story, everything that you are, and we'll look at it. Um, Another question. I see a question here about the deadline for May 2022 admission. Now, this will all depend on the program you're applying to. So I am going to drop the link for our application deadline page, because every program has its own deadline. And so I could tell you the application deadlines for one program, but it doesn't apply for another. So not all programs, and then some programs only have fall intake. Some may only have, I know of one program in particular which only does a winter intake. So it's best to look, and here it is. That's our application deadlines page. Take a look there, Joy, and see by looking at the program you're interested in or programs you're interested in, and see what the dates are. And of course, be sure to scroll through, because it may show you, let's say, the deadline for winter intake, spring intake, and fall intake, depending on how the program flows. And of course, when you go to the programs page for each program you're interested in, it lists clearly to the side all the admission deadlines, so or application deadlines. So check that out. It will differ according to your program. Any thoughts on wrapping up your application in time, Lara? Like, how was that for you? Like, was it a rush, or did you just kind of like, was it easy? Do you remember? Like, did you jump through
I
hoops?
think it was pretty easy. You know, I was working full time, like a teaching. So I know it wasn't, you know, beyond the reach of someone who was working full time to,
Right.
you know, it wasn't a full time job to make it happen. Uh,
Yes.
I think, you know, I think I wrote a fairly persuasive letter, um,
Yes.
you know, proposal of ideas, enough so that, you know, they invited me to come and have an interview. Um, so, you know, just, I guess, like you said, you know, I just put it out there who I was and what I was doing. And I didn't let my not so great undergraduate mark, I didn't let them hold me back. Uh,
Right.
and I also actually have, even in between, there's a little part of my background that we left out there that I didn't put in my bio because I didn't finish it, but I actually did a degree at Dalhousie after I finished my BA at mine. I went from
Mhm.
mine to Dalhousie to Acadia, back to mine. And that Dalhousie transcript, woo, it's like, it is really bad. Like D's, you know, I tried to do a business degree and I'm just not suited for that, I think. But the point is that that real stinker of a transcript also would have gone in there, and they still let me in because of my experiences and my passion and
your ability to convey that. Yes, because you mentioned having put together a very persuasive letter, and this statement of interest is panic inducing for a lot of people. Like, how do I put my entire life into this, you know, these few words? Do you have any tips? And I'm also going to drop in the chat the link to our grad apply page. So give them some tips, putting together a convincing statement of interest.
be authentic. You know, really kind of sit down and look at what makes you your authentic self, and think about what your best friend would tell someone about you, right? Like, because it's hard. People feel like, oh, you know, we have to be so humble. We have to, you know, not show off and not brag. I mean, that's how most of us are being made to feel, like, particularly women, I find.
Yes.
You know, apology for like being great at something. And I do it too, you know. But imagine your best friend was telling a stranger about you and about your accomplishments and about your passions and your interests. And they're just saying like, oh my God, my best friend, like, she is just so fascinated with, you know, the outdoor conservationship, you know, of the great horned snail. You know, just like, think about what makes you you, your
Yes.
passions, your you know, like, you might have done really bad in undergrad, but it's because you got really wrapped up in, well, undergraduate life, but that might have included organizing food drives and
Yes.
you know, volunteering at the gathering place, or you know, just, but what is important in at your core, what makes you you, and what you can bring to a program of study, and how a program of study can really alter your course in life. How
Yes.
let them know what that can do for you, and how valuable that education will be for you as a human being, and what you want to go forth into the world and do.
Excellent. And I'm glad you wrapped up that bit of advice with talking about the vision that you have for your life, you know, because it's the vision that you have for your life post this program of study that is going to pull you through the rough spots, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. For sure.
absolutely. This was really amazing. What do you say, Julie? You're muted.
I just realized I was on mute. Yeah, I just wanted to add too, that was great discussion about the statement of interest. On the application page that Denise posted, there's some videos at the bottom, and there's a great video there from a faculty member who sees and vets applications just on that topic, statement of interest. So those videos are really useful because they are made by faculty members who review applications. So that would be something to have a look at too. It's right down at the bottom of the application page. All right, I guess if there's no more questions or comments, we'll wrap this up, and I'm going to turn it back over to Andrea.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Denise. And thank you, Laura, so much for sharing your time, your experience. We greatly appreciate it. And I would just like to let everybody know, thank you, Laura. It's funny because before we started this call, Julie and I were just chatting very quickly about your master's thesis, and because I wasn't sure if Julie knew what it was. And of course, I would have been one of the kids with Laura at Pius X Elementary in the bathroom, turning the lights out, looking for Bloody Mary. So I was super fascinated when Laura told me when she was doing her master's what her topic was.
Back in those days.
Not to date ourselves. Hey, Laura. I mean, it was the 80s. So thank you again for everybody for attending. Thank you for all your great questions. Again, visit mun.ca/masterplan or email sgs@mun.ca if you have any questions. And if you enjoyed today's session, this is part 1 of a 2-part series. And our next guest speaker is Dr. Bolu Uganyami, and he's an MD grad 13, medical dermatologist, and a clinical assistant professor of medicine, as well as the Assistant Dean of Social Accountability for Memorial's Faculty of Medicine. Prior to his MD, he completed a diploma in clinical epidemiology. So that will be the topic for the next session, which is coming up on November 25th. So again, you can visit our website and check out the link to register for that. So again, thank you, Laura, and we hope you all enjoy the rest of your day.
Grade 1 now.
Yes, back to the grade 1s. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
And for anyone that out there that has any questions, you can reach out through the NLESD, I guess, and find me. I can answer any questions from that professional email they want. I don't know what they'd be, but I'm here for you.
Thank you very much, Laura. Greatly appreciate it.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you all.
Everybody.
Bye.